Anthony Kaminskas, it's safe to say that your interview went down quite well with people. So Ben asked if you'd come back to us with some specific questions set by people on Twitter, and you very kindly agreed. So if you're happy to crack on, we'll just plow through. So I've got 3 pages worth here.
Oh, very good. Sounds good. We're probably over-egging the pudding, but we'll have a go. Yeah, all good.
Okay, right. Just give the first name. This is from Michael on Twitter. What is the best way to grind up a smallish betting bank, low stakes and large volumes with a small ROI, or better waiting for a bigger mistake and be more aggressive?
Well, my approach was to wait for a bigger mistake and be very aggressive. Wouldn't have been that many years ago. My bank was pretty small. And yeah, I used to just wait for big mistakes that I could capitalize on and just have. I know we've just passed safer gambling week or whatever, but like my approach was to just go pretty much all in on as big a mistake as I could. And if I lost, know that not all in as in gamble my rent money, but like all in as in gamble my gambling balance, and just try and spin it up that way. I think as you get bigger, you can't go all in for a start, nor would you want to. But I think as you get bigger, what you tend to do is you try and get larger volume on smaller edges, because that's basically one of the few options open to you to getting good volume on, is to bet football teams at even money that you think are going to go off 19 to 20 sort of thing. So I think as you get bigger, that is an approach. But if I was starting off with £1,000 and I was on £2,000 a month as my wage, I'd be waiting and having 800 quid, a grand on something that was 5 to 1 that I made 2 to 1 sort of thing. And doing that and going back to zero is not much of a hardship. I have to work another 2 weeks to get my grand back. But that's the way I'd approach it, just to try and, you don't mind going broke when you don't have much, because you're used to being broke, aren't you? Like, you're used to not having much money. So that'd be my approach to that.
Okay, this is from John. Given the lack of proper traders these days, no offense to any traders out there, if you were starting out today, would you still follow the path you did working for a bookie, or would you go about things differently?
Yeah, I think when I see the interviews with like professional gamblers, and I've seen a few podcasts in the States, and where they interview like the old time guys that would have come up through the 70s and 80s, and everyone to a penny says, I wouldn't encourage my kids to get into it. Well, it's gone now. Like, I'd encourage my kids to go to school and do something different. Whereas I'm slightly different to that. Like, I think I think gambling teaches you to critically think. If you end up being okay at it, I think you can separate. There's loads of advantages to it, not just money. It's like signal and noise, separating different things, and just being able to critically think about things and being able to change your opinion based on evidence. And sure, we all know about just general stuff, politics. Like, one thing about rejoining Twitter recently is my fucking timeline is populated with everyone who's got a COVID theory and what government should do and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I got a D in GCSE science. Like, nobody wants to hear my opinion on COVID. Leave it to somebody else. So like, I think it teaches you to critically think and separate from where you're good at and where you're not so good at. And yeah, I'd recommend getting into gambling. And if you get good at it, it'll have other advantages for you as well.
Okay, this is from Frankie Strummer. What percentage edge are you looking for compared to your own prices before backing a selection? Does this change from sport to sport or even league to league?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I'd just be trying to price stuff. I think it all depends on the individual market. There'll be stuff in football, say like a football anti-post market, for example. If there was something I was betting the other day at 2 to 1, I was making it about 7 to 5. So that's a decent edge. I have to wait 7 months for it. But which I don't mind doing, like tying up a very small amount of my bankroll to be on stuff like that. But like, I think it all depends on the time the bet settles. So from when you're placing a bet, I think you don't mind smaller edges if you're going to get your money back in a day or two. I think you want bigger edges for the longer time it takes for a market to settle. So I'm happy to bet if there's a big mistake and it settles in 7 months, well, I'm going to take it. But if there's a small mistake and it settles in 7 months, I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to find a small mistake that settles in 2 days. And that allows me just to keep compounding my bankroll a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently. I don't want a small edge that's going to be tied up for a long time. So I think a lot of it depends on when the market settles.
Okay, this is from Tommy Two Fingers. Do you have a max odds that you will bet on to avoid big variance swings?
No, I'll probably have a max percent on my bankroll that I'll put on big odds. Again, it depends on how big you think the mistake is. If there's 1,000 to 1 shot, you make 10 to 1, and it's not a pulp. Like I'd probably be having a decent bet, but not decent in respect to my bankroll. I have to work out what the fair odds are or what I think the correct price is, and then I have to manage my bankroll correctly. I wouldn't say I'm not going to bet 1,000 to 1 shot. I will bet 1,000 to 1 shots. I bet 750 to 1 shots. 1,000 to 1 shots the odd time on Betfair in golf, for example. But it will be a small percentage of my bankroll, quite a small percentage of my bankroll, even if I make it. If I make 1,000 to 1 shot in golf, 350 to 1, I'll have a bet on it, but it'll be a small part of my bankroll, basically. And I'm repeating myself there, but like, yeah, that's what I'd be thinking. Like, you don't want to restrict yourself. Like all these people that have the rules, I don't bet odds on and stuff like that. Well, today's Monday. If you offer me tens on, tomorrow's going to be Tuesday. I'm probably going to take it. So why wouldn't you bet odds on? Like I don't get rules around price. It's just about finding mistakes and betting appropriately.
Okay, this is from Shane. If you see a total or handicap wrong line is way off, will you still bet it, even though the price may be heavily bookmaker margin?
Shane looks like he's just looking at lines there and just comparing between bookmakers and then betting somebody who maybe a bookmaker who hasn't moved the price. My problem with that is I don't know what the true price is. I'm just trying to look at events and find out what the true price is. So for me, it doesn't matter how much margin a bookmaker takes in a market because I know my 100% prices and I'm betting accordingly. I can bet into 150% markets, 160% markets if I think there's a mistake. And to know that there's a mistake, I have to be able to price the event myself. So I wouldn't be too concerned about how much margin a bookmaker's taking, but I would be concerned about pricing markets myself and getting accurate prices. And that's why I base my bets off, basically.
Okay, now Brian. Brian says he has an edge on something. Odds are steady around tips on 10 to 11. What stake should he play consistently to reap a reward, but not get banned by the betting operator? He's on his 4th account in the last 18 months, and he's running out of family members to use.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem, isn't it, Brian? Yeah, I wish I was on my 4th account in 18 months. So it's all relative, isn't it? I think if you're going to be betting mistakes that have an SP, so they have a closing line, like if you're finding a 10 to 11 shot in like something a bookmaker generates themselves, like maybe a player to be yellow carded or something like that, and it's returning 10 to 11 in their system, I think you're going to be able to have a lot more longevity. Whereas I think if you're betting a horse at 10 to 11 and it starts at 4 to 7, I think whatever way you toss it around, you're going to have trouble getting on after quite a short period of time. So I think it depends whether the bookmaker's returning their own price and how close to the off you can bet so it doesn't move that return price. But I think if you're just smashing up an SP, you're being way ahead of the closing line in a sport, whatever way you look at it, with the soft bookies or your odds checker bookies, you're going to struggle whatever way you do it. And you can try and normalize the account a little bit more by throwing in a bit of rubbish as well that doesn't really beat the price but is relatively neutral EV, to try and disguise your big plus EV bets. But I think at the end of the day, it's a matter of time, I think. And then a lot of it becomes about being able to get more than 4 accounts, basically.
Okay, this is from Gareth. I just wondered if Anthony is or has been involved in betting on rugby union and rugby league over the years.
Yeah, used to bet handicap, used to do a bit of weather, not so much anymore, to be honest with you. Weather related stuff in rugby, like unders when it's bad weather, blah, blah, blah. and then just try and predict weather. I was paying a meteorologist at one stage about £2,000 a month to give me accurate weather forecasts, basically, and that was to do with rugby. It was to do with cricket. Don't do that anymore. I thought his value in the end became pretty negligible, and I thought I could do roughly myself just using the weather apps, and there wasn't much difference to justify his £2,000 a month, basically. Rugby league, yeah, I think I don't mind saying this now because it's pretty much dead anyway, but like one of the edges we had in rugby would have been sloping pitches. So Batley Bulldogs in the English Championship have a pitch that is like that, and you used to be able to, there was an edge in finding out which way they were attacking in the first half, and then you could play your handicaps, first half handicaps, half time, full times, based on who was basically playing downhill, basically. A similar team to that would have been in Rugby Union. They're not in I think they're in the Championship in Rugby Union as well. Bedford Blues have a pitch that's like that as well. So that would have been another edge. I was looking at their match recently because I've not looked at it for a little while. I actually looked, Bedford were at home the other day and I couldn't even find match betting on it. So I don't mind sharing that one now because that looks dead. But yeah, just be looking for any kind of edge that's just not properly factored in, basically.
Okay, Chris would like to know how you come up with stake sizes. Is it the bigger the projected edge, the bigger the bet?
Yeah, pretty much. Bigger the edge, the bigger the bet, definitely. But when I say the bigger the bet, not so much stake. It's more to do with what percent of my bankroll at the time I'm willing to put on it. A stake size. I'm not a big Kelly man. I don't like Kelly criterion and staking my bets that way. I find that Kelly, just by definition, you need to know your edge to the exact percent for it to be efficient and to work. And the stuff I do, I probably don't know how I make a price ballpark, but I might not know my exact percentage edge. So if I'm messing around with Kelly, it takes a lot of time just to optimize a Kelly strategy, or relatively, it's just dead time basically. And I just basically I do a little bit more feel and just what I feel is the right size bet. And I think a lot of it also depends on what you're going to get on at the price as well. I might want 20 grand on something, and if I can get 4 grand on it, I want to get 4 grand. And then where does it affect my next bet if I'm trying to do some kind of Kelly thing? It's just, I just go what I can get on what edges I can get and just try and manage it in my head rather than managing it on an Excel sheet or something.
Okay, this will be the last one for this section. Doug Campbell, given how difficult it appears to be for racing punters, 100 plus quid, in particular to get on in the shops, do you consider the high street industry to be A, dead and buried, B, on life support but with a chance of recovery, or C, alive and vibrant, or is he talking garbage?
Doug Campbell, I remember Doug from Twitter back in the day. He's a nice fella. Racing, I think racing, you're just struggling fucking from the get-go, really, to be honest with you. I think if you're taking any kind of price before 1 p.m. or midday these days in winter, like I know from myself, when I worked at Paddy Power used to put up prices. They used to try and put up prices at 4 o'clock the day before. And I know Hills still do it, even sometimes 2 days before when decks are out. I know Paddy Power didn't used to break even on horse racing early price bets as a collective until about 11 a.m. on the day of the race. So if you're all these tipsters and all these people that bet overnight and they bet in the mornings before 11 o'clock, they're all saying, "Oh, I'm plus this ROI." Great, well done, but you can't scale it. It's pretty much impossible to scale it. So what's the point? You're going to nick a couple of quid. You're going to get your accounts closed, and you're going to be moaning about getting your account shut. The key is finding your edges after 11 o'clock to try and scale it, I think. So that'd be my opinion on that. Just regarding the high, I think everyone beats the price before 11 o'clock. Like you could do it with your eyes closed. There's no skill in it. But I think, back to Doug's question, the high street, like betting shops are really hit and miss, I find. Like I think Betfred are pretty good in the UK just for generally tolerating people and the offers they have and stuff like that. I think they're okay. Hills have gone from being really good to moderate. Ladbrokes and Coral, don't want to be disparaging about anyone. Coral, I just don't even know how anyone can get a bet on with Coral in a shop or online. It's very tough. and they're probably delighted with that. They'd be probably high-fiving each other to say that you can't get a bet on with them online or in shops. But I think there's an opportunity cost there as well. You stop me placing a bet, and you're also going to piss off a lot of good customers who go to your rivals as well. And I think that they can probably look at numbers and say, listen, we've not many people have beat the price with us, or we've not laid that many bad bets. But I think the survivorship bias of that is you probably don't see the good customers that you turn away from your shops as well. So yeah, the high street is, I think it's good in certain spots, but there's some firms that just probably don't do it that well, and maybe they're happy with that as well. I don't know.